Welcome to Arduino Made Easy, or easier. This is lesson 4. We're going to be talking about if statements and while and for statements. So let's get started with this right now. I'm Tom Kovichak, and this is Tom's Trains and Things. This channel was created to help other modelers who are in need of guidance in pursuing their dream of building a model railroad. And I'm just trying to make it easy for you to understand Arduino, even though Arduino is pretty easy to start out with. If you don't have the experience with coding or electronics, it might be a little bit difficult for you. So I'm just trying to make it a little bit easier. So if you would like to see more videos like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And while you're at it, ding that bell so you can be notified of when I have a new video coming out. And speaking of videos, go ahead and check out my playlists, where I have over 40 playlists categorized for you to see what you're looking for easily. So let's get started with this. We're going to talk about if statements, for statements, and while statements. Today we're going to use the same sketch that we used in lesson 3. We're just going to change some of the things on it, and the Fritzing diagram is going to be the same. So let me show you this right here. Everything's going to be the same. We're going to use the same 2 LEDs, and we're going to use the potentiometer on there. And so whatever we did on the last lesson, you could just take a look at that, use the same Fritzing diagram on there, and we'll be good to go. I have lesson 3 up here, so we could just review this real quickly. We declared what we're going to use in there, and I'm going to add a couple of more items on here in a minute or so, but we're going to use lesson 4. But we have the first 4, and we have in the void setup right here the pin mode, my LED 1, my LED 2, and serial begin 9600. We're going to keep that also. And in the void loop, we're going to keep the first 2 lines in there of val equal analog read pot pin, and val equal map val 0 to 1023 and 0 to 255. So everything underneath this we will not need. So normally I tell you to type everything in, but since we're going to be using the same values to start out with as we did in lesson 3, you could delete those last 4 lines on there, keep those curly braces in there, this last curly brace, because you'll need that for here. You see that one matches this one here. But anyway, we're just going to delete these last 4 lines here. And what you could do is come down here and do a save as, and save it as lesson 4, and or name it whatever else you wanted. But I have lesson 4 started already. I have the same values that I had in lesson 3 that I just told you about right there, all the way down to mapping the value, the VAL. So what we're going to do is add 2 lines up on top. And why we're going to do that is we want to count how many number of blinks that we're going to have on our LED. So we're going to call it BLNK. BLNK equal, and we're just going to say 6 for right now. We could change that at any time. And we're not going to write a description in there right now. We'll do that at the end of the video. And then we want a wait time for the delay. So I'm just going to put in wait equal, and we'll do 250 milliseconds. And let me put a space in there. And that's all we need right now. What we're going to do is, instead of putting a hard time in the delay, say like 250 or 500, we're just going to type in wait. So if we ever use it like several times. We could use the variable wait inside the parentheses of delay, so we can change it whenever we need to up on the top here, instead of having to go and change it several times down in the loop. Now, as you can see right here on the LEDs, I have them blinking, each one of them 6 times. And an easy way to get that LED to blink 6 times is with a for loop. And we could also do it with a while loop. What I'm going to do is I'm going to write a for loop for one of the LEDs, and I'm going to write a while loop for the other LED. And you'll see they're constructed a little bit different, but they do exactly the same thing. Going down the line, you're going to be using these not just to blink an LED, but for a lot of other different things while you're coding your sketch. So this is going to be some valuable information here on the for and the while, and then later on I'll put an if statement in there also. So the first thing we're going to do is come over here in the loop, and I'm going to put a space in here between the 2 first lines in there, so we could separate everything and see what's going on in here. So first thing we're going to do is write for. And with the for statement, okay, how we set this up, we have to initialize and identify. So it's going to be an integer. And long time ago in coding, the programmers used an I, and I don't know why they did it. They used I, and they used J for these type of statements here. So we're going to follow that, but you could call it anything. I mean, you don't have to call it I. You could give it any kind of name you want. You could call it baloney if you want to. Integer baloney equal 1 if you like, but we're to make it easier and to condense space, we're just going to say I is equal to 1. We're actually initializing what we're going to use. Okay, now after the semicolon, we're going to put in another I. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to make these LEDs, make one of these LEDs blink 6 times. So what we're going to do is I is less than or equal to, oops, and my big finger has got an L in there. Okay, less than or equal to, and BLNK that we used up on top there. Okay, and semicolon. That is the condition we're using. So we want to have our item, but we're calling I, and we want it to count 6 times. So the blink is the 6. So I is less than or equal to 6. Now we're going to do one more thing in there, and that's going to be the increment. And so how are we going to write that? Now there's 2 different ways that we're going to write it. I'm going to do it one way in the for statement, and I'm going to do it a different way in the while statement, but it's going to have the same results. So we're going to do I equal I plus 1. And what we're saying is every time that we go through this statement, we want to increment it one more time up until we get up to blink, which is 6. And that means that our statement is satisfied, and we'll go on to the next statement after the curly braces. Now you'll, and the curly braces are coming up here shortly. So I got I equal I plus 1, and that means that we are incrementing it one time. Now if we wanted to increment it by 2, say we want to count 2 or 4 or 8, whatever we want to put in there, we could put that in there. We could increment it that amount of numbers. It doesn't have to be 1, but for this instance and for mostly every other instance where you're stepping through something, you'll want to do it with 1 unless there's a specific reason why you want to do it with something other than 1. So we have 4, and we're identifying, we got integer I equal 1. Okay, then we have a semicolon. Then I is less than or equal to the variable blink, which is a number 6. So I is less than or equal to 6. We're saying that we want to do this as long as we're lower than 6. And so, and how are we going to get to that 6? We're going to take the I equal I, which is 1, and then add a 1 to it every time that we step through this statement here. So we'll step through it 6 times, and then once we step through it 6 times, that for statement is satisfied, and then we'll go on to what's after that for statement. Okay, so that's what we have right there so far. So we need a curly brace. So we'll put in 2 curly braces. Okay, and then what we'll do is we'll move this down a little bit so we could put in what we want to happen here. So what I want to do is I want to light up my LED 1, but remember last time we did it analog, and we controlled it by, we controlled the brightness by doing a potentiometer. We're going to be using a potentiometer later, but right now we're going to use the digital like we did before and just call it high. So what we're going to do is going to do a digital write my LED high. So okay, digital write my LED is high. Okay, and then what we want to do is we want to put a delay between the time that we have it high and low. So we're going to put in DELAY, and then what we have for that was wait. Okay, and then we'll do it again. My LED 1, comma, and then low, and then we'll put in another delay with wait. Okay, so what we have here, by doing that, we only have to write the digital write high, delay, digital write low, delay 1 time, but we're going to step through it 6 times with the for statement right there. You see where I'm getting at right here. So that's why we have a for statement, so we can condense what we're writing in there. We could write the for statement in there, say that we want to blink that, and we're using blink because that's what we're doing on here. We're blinking the LED. We could use any other variable in there. It doesn't have to be blink, it could be anything else. But this is what we're doing in this demonstration right here. We're blinking the LED. We're going to blink it 6 times. And once we're finished blinking that 6 times, then we'll go out below the curly braces right here. Okay, right now we don't have anything under the curly brace. So what it would do is if I uploaded this right now, it would just continually blink because it would go through it 6 times, and once it was finished, it would start counting again at 1 and go through that 6 again. But what I want to show you, we're going to use the serial monitor in here. Okay, and remember we did that last time to see what the reading was of the potentiometer. What I'm going to do now is put the serial monitor in there so we could see, so as we're going through that step, you could see it going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then starting over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whenever you're troubleshooting or whenever you're going through your sketches to test a value or a condition that you want, this is an easy way to do it. You could put your statements in there and then go back and put in the statement so you could read on the serial monitor what's actually happening, and you could see what's actually happening. Because if you just wrote this in here and was expecting it to blink 6 times and then stop, it's not going to do it because there's nothing else written after that. So you're going to say, oh my goodness, how come that's not doing it? Well, I'll show you why it's not doing it. What we want to do now is put in a serial print line right here so we could see what steps are being processed in this code. And what we want to do is we want to count the eyes in here. So let's upload this. Okay, done uploading, and we'll see that it steps 1 through 6 and then goes through 1 through 6 again. Now it repeats the 1 through 6 because there's nothing after the code that's in the for statement. After you have this curly brace right here, this is the curly brace for the for statement. It's counting through this code right here 6 times, but there's nothing after it. So what it does, it goes back up to the void loop again and starts that all over again and starts counting 1 through 6 again. Now when we put the when statement in there, that'll change all that. We're going to move down just a little bit further here. We're going to go, I'm going to move that curly brace up a little bit, and we'll come down to this line here. Now we're going to do a while statement, and while does exactly the same thing as a for statement. It's just constructed a little bit different, and I'll show you that right here. So what we're going to do is, and in a while statement, we're going to use a J, and the same thing. We're going to do less than or equal to BLNK. Okay, is that what we got? And then we put a curly brace and then end it, and then we'll move this curly brace down. And then see this, the while, it's saying the same thing. J is less than or equal to blink. The only difference about while is you can't initialize something inside the statement. So what we have to do, we'll go up to the top of the loop, and right here, we'll put it right there. And we'll do integer J equal 1. All right, now that's the same thing that we did in the for statement, except in for you could do it within the confines of the parentheses. In the while statement, you can't do it. It has to, you have to declare it before the while statement. So that's the only thing different about it. And well, that's one thing different about it. The second thing that's different about it is the way you step through it. You put that at the end of your commands. So what we're doing here, we have while, and while J is less than or equal to blink, we'll do what's inside that. So here again, to make things just a little bit easier, we're going to take this, and don't do this every time, and we're going to change something, because instead of me writing for 5 minutes watching me type, we're going to come down here, but we're going to change it to my LED2. You have my permission on this one to copy and paste, but we're changing it to my LED2 in here. And that'll make it a little bit easier to go through this statement right here. Now, I told you in 4 that I was going to show you a different way to step through it that'll do exactly the same thing. So what we're going to do is just go J and ++. And what that's telling us is every time we do a J, we're going to increment it 1 time. Because J is 1, we're just going to increment it 1 time. So J++ does the same thing. Now, we have our, oops, I got a bracket instead of curly brace right there. So we're going to have to take this out, put that there, and this up here. I'm glad I caught that before I tried to upload it. So we'll take a couple of lines out of here, or at least 1 line. Okay, we'll make sure that that brace is with that brace right there. Okay, so we have the same thing. We have the for statement, which we're telling it to blink 6 times. And then once it's finished blinking 6 times, it'll go to the next statement below the for statement, which is a while statement, which we're doing the same thing, but we're doing it with the while statement. We're telling it to blink the other LED 6 times. And when that LED is finished, we'll go back up to the top of the loop and start over again. So what we're going to do, for us to see the difference between the blink on the I and the blink on the J, is we're going to add another line on here. Okay, we got serial print I, but if we put the same thing in for J, it's just going to count 1 through 6 and 1 through 6, but we're not going to know which one is which. So here's another thing that we can do, and this is something that I haven't showed you yet. Serial, PRINTLN, and then what we're going to do is we're going to put a word in there, and we'll put in parentheses, not parentheses, quotation marks. Okay, and that's saying we want to add this on the print line exactly how it is in between the quotation marks. And so we're going to say I equal, and then we'll do a space and another quotation mark, and then close that out and hit the colon or semicolon. So what that's going to do is it's going to say, well, I don't want to do a print line. I want to keep it on the same line. So what we're going to do is serial. That's not a period. Okay. Serial print, and it's going to say I equal, and then it's going to go down to the next line, and it's going to put the value in there. So before we go any further, I'm going to show it to you, and it's going to do 1 through 6. It's going to say I equal 1, I equal 2, I equal 3, and then it's going to pause because it's going through the other statement, and you'll see when it does that, the other LED is going to light up. So let's get started with that right here. And then you'll see one LED blink 6 times, and then the other LED will blink 6 times. Okay, now let's pull up the serial monitor. Okay, now you're seeing a pause there because it's going through the while statement, and it's starting over I equal 6. Okay, let's do the same thing with the J. So we put serial print I, and then that right there. So let's just come down here, and we'll do the same thing, and you have my permission to copy and paste, so this will go a little bit quicker here. And we'll just take those 2 lines right there, and we'll put it right here. Okay, but we'll change this I to J. And let's clean this up a little bit and do auto format so it looks a little bit better right there. Okay, so now we have I equal and whatever the value is, and then it'll do J equal whatever the value is. So let's upload this, and then we'll turn the serial monitor on. And so you see I, and it's stepping through the I and J. Oops. You'll notice when I put the print statement outside the while loop that it only identifies J as 1, which is what we declared it as in the integer J equal 1. So we have to put it inside the while loop for it to step through. So let's do that right now. We'll take it out of here. And we'll put it in the while statement. Like that. Okay. Okay, let's clean this up a little bit. Let's go up to here. Auto format it, get it back down there. Now that we have it in the while statement, then we should be good to go with the counting on it. And there we go. It's uploaded, and then we'll take a look at it right there. And you can see it's stepping through the I, and then it's stepping through the J. It's counting 1 through 6 on both of them. Now we're going to do it a little bit something different. We're going to show you an if statement in here. And what we're going to do is put the if statement up on the top right here. And we're just going to type in if, and do a parentheses, value is greater than 128. Okay, is that what I got? Then I'll have to put a curly brace right there. And then another curly brace. I'll put it right here. So that way, if the value is greater than 128, and that's on the potentiometer, then it will run this right here, the I. But if it's less than 128, it'll skip this right here and then go down to the while. So let's upload that and see what happens. Okay, we have both of them running right now, so that means that that is greater than 128. So let me turn this down, and we'll see what happens. And so you see only one of them is running right now. So what we're going to do, we're going to put another print statement in there up on the top here and put serial print val, and we'll upload that and see what happens. And what it should do is tell us what the value is when we bring up the serial monitor. Okay. So what I need to do here, I'm going to put a print line because it put it on the same line as the 1, and it brought up a 0. So you see what happens there. Now let's open this up again, and you could see 0. It prints out a 0, and it's only doing a J. So that means that whenever the potentiometer is set to 0, it's not cycling through the eye. So we'll bring the value up and try to get it around. Okay, so now it's above 128. So you can see it's doing both I and J. So that's the if statement right there. If the condition in that statement is true, then it will run. Let me move this out of the way. If this condition is true, it'll run I. It'll run this right here that's inside these brackets right here. If it's false, it will go down to the while statement. It'll completely ignore this statement right here. So you see, that's what the if statement does. If value is greater than 128, it will blink my LED 1. If it's less than 128, it'll skip that and only blink my LED 2. So I'll bring this down just a hair, and you can see that it's blinking my LED 2 constantly. Let me bring up the serial monitor. You can see it's set at 123, so it's lower than 128. So it's not allowing the I to run. It's not allowing the for statement with the I in there to run to make my LED 1 blink. So if we turn this back up, and we'll have both of them blinking now. It'll go through the for statement, and then it'll go through the while statement. So there's our if, for, and while statements. And you learned a little bit more about the serial monitor in there. Now for easier viewing, I added serial print val equal like I did with the other ones. So whenever we pull this up, we could see value equal 163, and then it does the I's, and then it does the J's, and as we decrease the value, we'll bring the value down. You can see the value is less than 128, so it only prints out the J. It only steps through the J, so we'll bring it back up to above 128, and it also goes through the steps of the I and the J. Well, there you have the if, for, and while statements, and I'll put the finished code right here so you could see it with all the comments in it. And also, we'll have it on tomstrainsandthings.com/Arduino as always. So you could check it out on my webpage. And since I don't have a Fritzing diagram for this one, it's the same as lesson 3. So you can just refer back to lesson 3 Fritzing diagram, and I'll just put a note in the notes for this lesson saying that you could look back on to lesson 3 Fritzing diagram for the same thing. Now, next week we're going to go a little bit further into these statements to see what we could do with it, and we're going to substitute the potentiometer with another sensor, and you'll see that sensor next week, and you'll see why we're going to use that sensor. So look for that next Saturday. So we'll see you.